Friends, we live?
Customer.
We're supposed to be live right now.
Rita, is we live?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pleasant evening, everyone. A pleasant evening to our viewing audience. Pleasant evening to our listening audience. And we want to welcome you to our second webinar in a series of 5. This evening, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining with us as we discuss sport and the way we can use sport to change the way and things in our country. This evening, our moderator will be Mr. Mushtaq Mohammed, who is a senior sport officer at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Mushtaq is also the vice president of the International Volleyball Federation and also the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Volleyball Federation. So I take pleasure this evening in inviting and welcoming Mr. Mushtaq Mohammed, our moderator. Let's sit back and enjoy this evening's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. And good night, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are, which part of the world you are located at this point in time. I bid you greetings on behalf of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and more specifically, the Sport and Recreation Unit. As Ian said, it's the second of a 5-part series webinar, and our topic is sports tourism, a viable option. If we separate the words in the topic, sport and tourism, we will find that there are two activities more or less together. And to do justice to this topic, we have assembled 4 national sporting heroes and a tourism expert. The pleasure is now mine to introduce them to you. I want to start with a young lady, and she will blush a little bit. Bridget Adams, a level 2 netball coach, a coach presenter, responsible for certifying netball coaches. She has quite an illustrious career in netball and as a player and as a coach. A former captain of the national netball team who played in 3 world tournaments in Singapore, Scotland, and England. She also captained the West Indies team, which toured England and Wales in 1991. She has an executive master's in sports management and currently pursuing a doctorate at UTT. Ms. Adams is also the high performance coach at UTT. Ms. Bridget Adams, welcome.
Thank you, Mushtaq.
We have Neil Shaka Hislop. I knew him as Shaka Hislop, and now I know his full name. Neil Shaka Hislop is a current soccer analyst and commentator for ESPN. Shaka graduated from Howard University in 1992 with a BSc in Mechanical Engineering, and in 2014 he earned his Executive MBA. In between earning both degrees, Shaka played football professionally for 15 years, 14 of which was spent in England, and he had a 1-year stint in US Major League Soccer. Shaka also represented Trinidad and Tobago at international levels throughout his career, of course, including the solitary FIFA World Cup appearance in 2006. He's also the recipient of the National Shakonia Medal Award and the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee Alexander B. Chapman Award. Neil Shaka Hislop, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mushtaq.
Yeah, great. Great to have you, Shaka. Cliff Hamilton, our tourism expert, as I said, has a career. Cliff Hamilton is a career tourism and hospitality specialist practitioner and currently an associate professor at the University of Southern Caribbean. He's also the managing director of Tourism, Hospitality and Leisure International, which is a region hospitality and tourism consultancy firm. He has more than 35 years of leadership in both the private and public sector in tourism and hospitality industry. Cliff, Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
The next gentleman, former West Indies cricket player, and he considered himself to be the most handsome cricketer in West Indies cricket. Played for Surrey Cricket Club, former assistant coach for the West Indies U19 and B teams, a level 3 West Indies cricket coach and assessor, and the former chairman of the national senior team selectors panel, Tony. He's also our high performance coach at UTT. Tony Anthony Gray, welcome.
Good evening and thank you, Mushtaq.
So before we start tonight's session, I want to engage you in a PowerPoint presentation. And if I can get this running right. I hope you can see my screen.
Yep.
Great.
Yes.
Sports tourism, a viable option. We first would like to define what really we understand by sports tourism. And we can locate many different definitions. But sport tourism is an activity where sport is a prime purpose for travel and is married with tourism and leisure activities. We are familiar with all of these logos that are listed here, and we know the potential and what they have brought to the various countries and the activities that they represent. If we were to look at some statistics, the World Travel Tourism Council have recognized that in 2016, the global GDP increased by 10.2% because of sport tourism, creating an average of 292 million jobs. Another big event was one second, I see we have another guest joining us, and I'd like to admit him in. Sorry. Yeah, the ICC World Cup in 2015 in Australia generated over $1.1 billion and over 1 million visitors. And the London Olympics, as you see, each over 500,000 tourists, but each one of them has an average spend of £1,200. That's going to be a significant amount of dollars at the end of the day. Despite the Zika threat to Rio, the Rio Olympics was able to attract over 1 million tourists during the period, with 93% increase in hotel capacity and generated over $6 billion to the economy. The CPL cricket had an estimated economic impact of over $136 million last year, with St. Kitts and Nevis alone mustering over $22 million US, just over a 5 weeks period for such a small country. We are aware that in Trinidad and Tobago, we have some great facilities and they have great potential with that. We need to use them and invest in them. So tonight, in the next 80 minutes, we want to examine the sport industry or the sport tourism industry locally and discuss what is required to make this industry a viable option. We hope to be able to address these questions here. And permit me, let me stop sharing my screen and we go back to our activities of tonight. Tonight, we want to start the discussion with Cliff Hamilton. Cliff, can you give us a brief introduction as to where we are currently with sport tourism industry in Trinidad and Tobago?
Mr. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to share with the team and with the listening audience. sports tourism in Trinidad and Tobago is probably in the best place it could be at this time, and which is a very good place. And as you said earlier, it has huge potential going forward. There is a high demand for the destination because of what it represents. Persons want to come here because of the energy, because of the hospitality, because of the gracious hosts the Trinidad and Tobagonians represent. There's a cadre of excellent professional promoters and organizers of sporting events. I think we probably have the best in the region when it comes to the promoters and the organizers of sporting events. We have world-class facilities, as you spoke to earlier. I think unmatched by anyone in the region. And I would venture to say that even certain parts of the hemisphere, I had a conversation some time ago, maybe a year ago, with the president of the Canadian Velodrome organization out of Canada. And he told me that our velodrome here is the finest in the hemisphere. He said that the Canadians had the best up until we built the one in Vancouver. So that I thought was certainly a big endorsement in terms of the quality of what we have to offer. The other thing I think we have is we have a huge amount of homegrown sporting events, which I think is good because we could build on those brands. And those brands are home owned. They're not something that comes in and leave. When you look at what has been happening with the powerboat race, I mean, those guys have been doing that for years. That's a homegrown event. When you look at what's been happening with the cycling on the avenue, again, homegrown events that have potential and has attracted quite a bit of persons to the destination, right? Both in Tobago and in Trinidad. So these events are all sporting events. The other thing we have good on-the-ground logistics in terms of transporting people, in terms of accommodating them. And we've got strong backward linkages to the economy, which is really the key issue in terms of the economics of it. So we've got excellent accessibility in terms of airlift. You can probably get here from any part of the world within a day. So all of those things, I think, have positioned us to have a very strong competitive and comparative position with regard to the sports tourism sector.
Cliff, I'm not too sure if your mic is muted. Cliff, can you unmute your mic again? You froze a short while ago.
Okay, are you hearing me now?
Yeah, we hear you now. Great, great. So yes, continue. We didn't hear what you were saying for a short while ago.
Okay. I started off by saying that I think we're in a very good place.
Yeah,
you got all of that.
we got all of that, yeah.
That I still would like to put emphasis on the fact that we have a huge amount of homegrown events, sporting events. When you take into consideration the Great Race, which is homegrown. We've got the cycling on the avenue, which is homegrown, which attract a large amount of visitors every year. And then also we've got good underground logistics and support for these events in terms of ground transportation, in terms of accommodation, and accommodation that's world class. All of these things allow for strong linkages to the economy. So we basically get a lot of spin-off to the other subsectors of the economy as a result of what we have. The other thing is that we've got excellent accessibility in terms of air access to the rest of the world. You can actually get here within a day from most parts of the globe. I think all of these things combined has put us in a position where we probably are the most competitive and most comparative sport tourism destination in the region. I don't think there's any destination in the region that actually can compete with us based on all of the supply side activities that we have. And then coupled with the fact that we've got good weather, and I think one of the key things is we've got a very hospitable and gracious host. So I think based on all of those factors, sports tourism in Trinidad has a very bright future.
Great, Griff. I think, as you say, we have a bright future, so things to look up to. Yeah. While we were talking, we were joined with Brent Sancho, and permit me the opportunity just to give him a brief introduction. Brent, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mushtaq, and good night to all the panelists, and of course, good night to all that's on as well listening.
Great. And for everyone, I mean, Brent needs no introduction, but just to let you know, of course, Brent is also a recipient of the Shakonia Medal National Award. He was also a national player, part of the 2006 World Cup Soca Warriors team. And in 2015, he had a stint as a sports minister. So we hope that to tap his resources tonight to bring back his stint when he was a sports minister. But Brent, we will bring you on to the conversation shortly. I want to ask Shaka at this point in time. Shaka is a former national player, did some extensive travel, and now in the business of the media. Tell us your perspective of sports tourism and its potential for Trinidad and Tobago.
Certainly. Thank you very much for the introduction, Mushtaq. As you mentioned, yes, as a player, you travel. And generally during the season, of course, it's all within country. But certainly in the pre-seasons, teams travel just for a change of venue. Oftentimes it's within the country, but I've also spent a number of pre-seasons traveling internationally, and only a couple of times during my career did we have mid-season international breaks. And the requirements are always the same. You're looking for not just facilities and infrastructure that Cliff touched on, but you're looking for meaningful competition. While you're there, you want to train on facilities that are equitable to what you're used to, but you also want to play meaningful games against competition that will sharpen your skills and test your abilities. I think that is also important, and which speaks to not just the need for the facilities and the events that Cliff spoke about, but also having teams in whatever sport it is we're talking about, that visitors can continue to compete against and form that meaningful the meaningful competition that they need at those points of the season. It's not just about facilities. I think we have those largely. But of course, the better we can make of that at every single level, the better we stand, the better stead we stand ourselves in terms of attracting that international talent. And maybe I know I'm fully biased here, but outside of athletics, I can make the argument that certainly in terms of club football and club level sports, we are the best in the region as well. So we have a healthy mix of facility and competition to attract international teams to our shows.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Shaka. The thing about it, both of you have indicated that we have the best facilities. We are the best in club structure. Be careful. We have a cricketer here, we have a netballer here, and me, myself in volleyball. But nevertheless, we agree with you, and we believe that the facilities are our main attraction. We have the best in the world, and we can do better with them, according to both you and what Cliff has said. Let me bring Tony in. Tony, from a sporting perspective, enlighten us on what you believe currently exists locally and how it can impact the sport and tourism.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Mushtaq. And let me just say, I'm very happy to be here this evening because we have panelists that can and obviously has played a huge role in the development of sport and the country as a whole. I think that we have a lot of things here in Trinidad and Tobago that can really and truly boost the tourism industry. And before COVID-19, we've seen a fluctuation in gas and oil. And obviously, it has been exacerbated by COVID-19. I think too that these resources that we have depended on, obviously, are receding commodities. And who knows what will happen down the road. It could have a total cessation of these natural resources. So we have to diversify the economy. When we look at it, the strength that we have is the diversity of our people in so many different ways. And part of it is because we bring a lot to the table that can be used in the tourism industry. But when we look at sport tourism, we have everything as mentioned before in Trinidad and Tobago, not just the great weather that we have, that sporting teams from all over the world will want to come and enjoy off season and prepare for their season, but we have a host of different facilities. I mean, when you look at COVA, for example, COVA, they're the combination of facilities that can be used. And we know now that high-level sport and teams prepare fully to build their athletes in an all-round way. Sports training programs definitely focus on the science of training and developing people from all angles. So the COVA facilities, you have Brian Lara Cricket Academy, you have the cycling velodrome, we have the aquatic center. So we have the facilities down there. But we've seen what sport has done, and sport tourism specifically, to develop our country. I mean, Hero CPL 2019, the economic impact was amazing. The tournament was played during the period of the 4th of September to the 12th of October 2019 and had the following impacts. The total economic impact of upward of $30 million US, which represents an 18% increase on the 2018 figure. We hosted 5 group games along with 2 semifinals and a final. We also hosted 2 historic women's matches. CPL 2019 employed 489 local staff and also filled 10,642 hotel rooms. There was a 15% increase in arrivals to TNT for the final. So it just goes to show the power of influence that sport has. But this is not the only thing that can be used. We can use other things that can bring people through sports tourism to the country. We can use symposiums, we can use short courses, we can use the museum. And I have to say that after looking at pictures from the museum, we have not used our iconic figures and the record-breaking feats that they have achieved properly to exhibit, that history behind it in the museum. So I think that a lot more can be done. We have everything here. We have the personalities, the sporting icons, the Brian Laras, the Shaka Hislops, Brent Sancho, as we've seen here today. And we have all these people, the iconic figures and the names on the stadia throughout the country. And we basically have everything to promote sports tourism and to bring in more monies into the revenue.
Thank you, Tony. You brought in the leisure aspect of it. And great amount of research was done in preparation, Tony. Good statistics to show what has happened to the CPL and the impact in Trinidad and Tobago specifically. Thank you, Tony. So let's bring in Brent here in the discussion. Brent, your hat as a former minister, share some of your ideas you would have had to grow the sport or through sport, to grow sports tourism in Trinidad and Tobago.
Good night again to all the panelists and to everyone. And it is interesting that we are having this type of discussion, especially in the backdrops of COVID-19. And as Tony Gray would have mentioned, of course, the position that we're in as a country economically, as it relates to our oil and gas scenario, which is our major income earner. Let me start by saying that I truly believe that sports tourism has all the ingredients to become a major economic earner for this country. We've spent a lot of time talking about the magnificent facilities that we have. We spent a lot of time talking about the persons and the personnel that we may have in the country that could, of course, augur to building a sports tourism brand that could compete with the rest of the world. I think the question is why did it not happen? Why has it not happened as yet? Or why has it not kicked off in the right way? I just want to add as well to besides the CPL and of course the different sports that we talked about. I remember sitting in office and learning that one of the better mountain bike trails is right here in Trinidad and Tobago in Toko. And I was amazed to hear how popular it is. I was also amazed to hear of fishing, of the sport of fishing off of Charlottesville, and how many various boats from up and down the Caribbean and even as far as of the US of A that comes here to Trinidad to of course partake in a yearly fishing tournament that, as I said, attract a lot of persons coming this way. So we do have the potential, the whys and why it has not happened. And it all goes back to, of course, a lack of implementation. There was a sports tourism policy, I believe, done in 2017, 2018. And we've just seemed to have struggled to, of course, put these policies in place. We also have many agencies within operating in silos. There seems to be a situation where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And there should be a stronger collaboration between the Ministry of Sport and the Ministry of Tourism, particularly as it relates to sports tourism. And I think until we start to form these genuine partnerships towards this drive of making sports tourism a real economic earner for Trinidad and Tobago, we will keep having these sorts of discussion without it moving forward into something a bit more tangible. And I strongly feel that if something like that was to happen in terms of that merger between the different government agencies, you can definitely build a very good product of sports tourism. As would have mentioned by all the speakers so far, we have an extremely attractive country as it relates to sports tourism. The facilities, the weather, all these things are perfect, but you have to make sure that you put things out there to get people to come in. One of the things that came to me when I sat as minister, there was a company, I heard Mr. Hamilton, I think, mention about the cycling velodrome. They were very excited about doing a world cycling tour that would have included Trinidad and Tobago as one of their stops. They went as far as to was willing to pay for an entire year or years of rental for the velodrome to make sure that they have 3 or 4 of these activities partaking during the course of the year with their stops. So it's out there, and it's something that's very practical, but I think we need to do a better job of course, merging the different agencies to make sure that the sports tourism brand is a good one, because at the end of the day, it is more than just sport. It is obviously tourism. It's also Ministry of Trade, and all these different ministries culminate to making sure that sports tourism brand is one that the rest of the world would stand up and look at and want to partake in.
Brent, you talk about the merger, the collaboration between sports, Ministry of Sport and Ministry of Tourism. But I'm thinking that when you say Ministry of Sport, you're including the NGOs within that,
Correct.
because the NGOs are important. They are the ones who have access to the events or the access to the international federations. They are the one who can invite or bring in events that will help build the sports tourism. So yes, we agree with you. Let me, at this point in time, bring in the lady. Bridget, you have traveled a lot as a player, and from your experience, what do we need to package our events to make it attractive so that tourists will come to our destinations? Bridget, you have to unmute your mic.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we're hearing you. Great, thanks.
Okay. Having heard the other panelists speak before me, I can tell you that our product has already been packaged. But I want to speak from my travels abroad. During my travels, I've seen many regional and international facilities and had diverse experiences. I have seen facilities in both first world countries and developing countries. From that perspective, when I look at Trinidad and Tobago in terms of sport tourism, I think about what is unique to attract our athletes to our destination. Our destination has the temperature, the climate, the structural capacity to facilitate a wide range of professional and amateur sport events. During winter, when athletes in the cold country need to practice, they can come to Trinidad and Tobago since we already have the infrastructure in place. Over the last few years, the government has built several professional sporting facilities throughout Trinidad. And as Tony mentioned, the cycling velodrome in Vancouver, the racket center, the aquatic center, the hockey field, and so on. Now we have the home of football, which wasn't built by the government, but it's a major complement to what we have. Currently, there's rising interest in cricket and football to have camps here. But our already existing facilities can be used for various sports in the off-season. To me, sport tourism is a holistic concept, dealing not only with sport, but also a total experience involving our unique cultural experiences. For example, our flora and fauna, the Nyland Pool, Pitch Lake, Caroni, Bird Sanctuary, our cuisine, festivities, and culture. In other words, we should be marketing a holistic experience for the visiting athlete. That is why the concept of the COVA facility is, again, very important. And I want to emphasize the concept of a multidisciplinary sporting environment where the athletes can be housed and trained in world-class facilities. These facilities are in nearby proximity in COVA. The nearby aquatic center can be used as a recovery facility as well. The location also offers a desirable ambient air quality that is beneficial to the athletes compared to a city location, which will be more healthy and conducive to athletes. We sit outside of the hurricane belt, so therefore our sporting facilities are intact. Our diverse culture, multi-ethnic society, and the uniqueness of and friendliness of our people will benefit a whole lot from businesses as well in the area. It is also an important avenue for foreign exchange earnings. So having mentioned what was said before, I believe once properly packaged, our country can be the preferred destination for sport tourism.
Bridget, thank you so much. You know, while you were talking, everyone was shaking their heads. They were acknowledging and agreeing that everything that you have said, you're on point. Are you sure you're a netball coach or a tourist specialist also? Fantastic. No, I have to agree with you 100%. And you know something, let me put in a little volleyball thing here. Trinidad and Tobago has the only beach volleyball training center. And just as you said, when the climate in Europe doesn't facilitate external activities, these athletes want a facility to train. And we have a volleyball training center, not at the beach, but in Chaguanas.
Yeah.
And our Caribbean athletes have used it intermittently. But yes, it's something that we need to market well, and so that we can attract, you can have it being used 24/7, as you would say. So yes, Bridget, we agree with you 100% that we do have the facilities, we do have the climatic conditions to facilitate Europeans and other, and likewise, to train here when the climate is different in their local, in their region. So Cliff, let's come back into the conversation. The tourism expert here, we have it tonight. What are the elements to be considered in a sports tourism development framework?
Well, there are 4 elements that I would say we need to consider. The first one being, we must ask, where are we now and how do we compare? So if I were to answer that question, I would say that within the region, we're probably at the top of the heap. I don't think there's any other destinations in the region that can compete with us. Where would we like to be? That's a question that I don't think I can answer. I think that requires more of a collective type of response. But I think the collective response will help to drive all of the other initiatives that could take us to another level. And how do we get there? And I think that comes with the whole coordinated, holistic approach to which everyone spoke. And I thought that the Brent's point was well made, is that we have all of these, we have all of the things. We just, for some reason, we haven't been able to bring it together with glue. And I think that is a real issue, is the whole coordinating, collaborative approach to keep everything working, because that is where the strength comes. And that is really, I think, one of the elements that's going to allow us to get there. And then the other thing is, how do we stay there? We stay there with being persistent. We stay there with scanning the market. We stay there with improving on our product. We stay there with doing all the things that people like coming here for, and continue to do it and do it well. So those are the 4 elements that I see.
So Cliff, you would say that, you said it in your open remark, you say it again, that we have the most competitive venues.
Mm-hmm.
We have, go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, I'm saying that we have the most competitive venues. Would you say that we lack marketing of it?
I don't think we lack marketing, because one of the things that I've learned is that Trinidad and Tobago has members on most of the international sporting federation, and at a very high level, either at the executive level. That in itself has tremendous value, because you don't actually have to go there and actually fight to get an event, to host an event. You're part of the process. You're part of that whole process that makes the decision on where these venues are held. So when you talk about hosting events, I mean, I would like to think that that's probably one of the easiest things for us to do. I think in terms of marketing, the training aspect of the destination might require a little bit more effort, because that requires us going to universities that have swimming teams, that have certain types of athletes that need training during the what we would consider the winter season. That requires some special targeting approach to marketing. But I think in terms of the other types of sporting events, I think those things we basically have locked down. And I don't see why we shouldn't be having more of it, considering the reach that Trinidad and Tobago National has in all of these international sporting fraternities.
If I can jump in here, Mushtaq, excuse me.
Sure,
I'd
sure.
I'd
I was
like
going to bring you
add-
in to Shaka. I was
No
going to bring you
problem.
in to no, go ahead in this
Yeah, no,
one.
I was just saying, I would like to counter what Cliff said. I think, I believe we lack marketing. I feel that our approach to sports tourism has been build it and they shall come. And that's not necessarily the case, especially when you're competing on the fronts and against some of the other destinations that we do. Yes, we have some of the best facilities in Sydney in the region. I don't think that's questioned, and certainly I'm not going to challenge. I also think we have arguably the best in terms of competition, and regardless of that sport. Where I do feel we've let ourselves down in marketing terms is some of the synergies that occur between sport tourism, and as Bridget mentioned, some of the other tourism drivers, some of our other tourist attractions in terms of whether it's the bird sanctuary or whether it's some of our food festivals. I don't think we've done a good enough job as well of identifying the auxiliary revenues that come with having sports teams visit Trinidad and Tobago. It's not just about them buying plane tickets and booking into hotels, but it's having our events coincide with a food festival, and how much money will a visiting team spend on one of those food festivals? How much money will they spend in visiting the bird sanctuary? We haven't done a good job of identifying that. And why I say I feel we lack the synergies is because if we are having a sporting event, and I'm sure Brent can speak to this, it falls squarely in the lap of the Ministry of Sport, where I feel so many other departments benefit. And listen, I was with ESPN, and when we first started our drive into the Caribbean, which I mean we don't have that facility. I mean, ESPN is still there, but we don't have the same approach that we once did some 10 years ago. But with us coming into the region, people started to believe that ESPN was going to be paying for rights, and that's how they would balance their books, and that's how they would make their numbers work. Whereas sitting in those meetings, I can tell you right now, media broadcasters such as ESPN, with the global reach that we have, we're an asset. And we feel you need to pay for us to be there. But also in producing the events that we did, we went around. So one of the events that we came in and did for a couple of years was Tobago Cycling. And our team would come in a week before the event and travel all around the island, shooting scenics, as we'd call them. And every now and then we'd cut away during the event, we'd cut away to a scenic to highlight the nylon pool, to highlight goat racing, or whatever it may be. And those for me are every bit as valuable to a wider audience as it is to cyclists coming in. Similarly, if you have, and I'll now mention cycling, I'll stick with them. If you have a cyclist coming in and his experience in Tobago is that good, he might come back with his family. He might come back on honeymoon or to have a beach wedding. Those auxiliary revenues, we simply haven't done a good enough job of driving. And now all of a sudden, if we combine those, if we look at the benefit that a media broadcaster brings, if we look at the down the road cost that additional the revisits of our athletes bring, it'll make a whole lot more sense if on that single one event, it's a bit of a loss leader in terms of the revenues. And that's where I feel our marketing, because it hasn't been, and I'll use Bridget's term here, it hasn't been holistic. As a result, I don't think we've delivered on the best that I think our facilities and teams can offer.
Yes. Can I come in here, Mushtaq?
Before you come in, Tony, sure you can come in and we will open up some discussion here on the point. But I just want to remind viewers that on the YouTube, that it will be about 45 minutes. We're about halfway through this session. We will be taking some questions at the end of the session, and we are collating these questions and we will be able to answer them. Maybe not all, but we try to answer as much as we can. So let me again thank the viewers who are viewing and making this discussion important. So yes, Shaka, you were talking about, one of the things that you talk about there is something that I always imagine in my mind when I travel or when we host an event in Trinidad and Tobago: data collection. Data collection so that we can know what we spend, we can know how many return guests that we have, we can know what's the impact that this event is making into the economy. We host an event, I'm talking about, let's say, when I say we, I'm talking about volleyball here now. We host an event, but the athletes come in and they go out. We didn't, alongside hosting an event, we didn't sell Trinidad and Tobago. We didn't send them a package to encourage them that when you come to Trinidad and Tobago, you can stay a night extra or 2 nights extra so that you can visit the places and all the, the Nyland Pool and all the other things of interest. How well are we doing that, and how much better we can do? Tony, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, definitely.
Then I'll bring in Brent.
I would have to agree with Shaka. I don't think that we market the country well at all. I don't think that we have improved the marketability of the country through our great performers. I mentioned it just now. I don't think that we understand how to tap into different markets. I talked about the museum, and let me just touch on that. I've looked through the museum. I'm not seeing, anything historical as it pertains to the record-breaking feats of our athletes. I mean, Brian Charles Lara, that's amazing. It's mind-boggling, mind-bursting that a man will recapture the world's best batting record, after 10 years of, breaking it the first time. We don't have those historical facts in the museum. We have a young man at 19 years old captures the javelin Olympic gold medal after starting at 16 to throw javelin. And that is amazing for me. Those things can be used as a marketing tool that has not been used. I mean, if you look at Hazy Crawford back in 1976, we don't use our athletes. Usain Bolt recently said that anytime there has to be an ad using him, it has to be done in Jamaica. So I don't think that we have the power of influence. I don't think that we have the marketing strategies to promote our country. We can talk a lot about the different things that we have to offer. We can talk about Carnival, and Carnival reeks in over $300 million every year, but we want sustainable interest, and we want people to come to this country all of the time. And sports tourism can do that, but we have to improve on the ability to market. Look at Stanford T20 cricket. He understood the psyche of the market out there, and he had specific marketing strategies. I mean, he used a lot of reggae music and things like that. So I think that we have not used the people with the power of influence, our athletes, properly. Michael Jordan, I mean, you can't get better than that. He's a billionaire now after being used consistently. The NBA is a better place now, more lucrative place because of Michael Jordan and the way Nike used him. So I think that we have to understand the market out there. And let me just touch a little bit on Brian Lara again. I mean, you have about 5 record-breaking bats that he used, but none of them are in the museum. Now, if you put one of those bats in the museum and you open up the Indian market, it's the second most populated country in the world. It's not like China. China is the most populated country, but they have diverse sporting interests. India loves cricket. They're fanatical about cricket. They would want to come to the Brian Lara Stadium. They will want to come to the museum to take out a picture with one of the bats that he broke the record with. So my point is that we don't market our country properly, and we are dependent on other people to do so, and they have not done a good job. So it needs comprehensive marketing and understanding the market out there, and we have to employ people who are good at marketing our country the right way.
Thanks, Tony. And I just want to add here, in terms of Brian Lara, and not only Brian Lara, but some of our sporting heroes. I've been into one of my volleyball meetings in Switzerland. I met a guy from India. And I said, do you know Trinidad and Tobago? What? He doesn't know Trinidad and Tobago. You know West Indies cricket? Yes. You know Brian Lara? Oh, Brian Lara. And then he started to treat me as a king. Because when I explained to him who Brian Lara is and how Brian Lara and I share the same country, but then I am his king, So yes, you are quite right that our icons are part of our marketing thing. Brent, are we talking that the destination is strategic, it's competitive, it has a comparative advantage? What is needed?
I think we need to start to incentivize bringing persons, teams, etc. to the country. It's all good to talk, yes, with marketing, and I do agree that we could do a better job with marketing. But then, what are you selling? Just selling the facilities is not just it's not good enough in my view. You have to incentivize, meaning that whether Caribbean Airlines could start giving out discounted prices for teams to come, or even putting on a situation where teams come here for free and then they advertise it. And Shaka could bear me out with this. He would know when a British team, an English team, a Premiership team travels to any destination, they probably go with about 400 or 500 supporters for preseason travel. English fans actually book their vacation based on where their team trained for preseason. So it has to do as well with marketing, but as well as incentivizing and making sure that we give good incentives for teams and various individuals to come to the shores. It's good to have all these facilities. May I add as well, as one of the plans that we had back in 2015 was using a wing of the Couva Children's Hospital to be a sporting rehab or sporting health facility, which now we're looking at sport health tourism as a driver, as well as bringing persons in as it relates to preseason training, as it relates to rehab training, etc. That was something I discussed with the then Prime Minister about bringing that as also as part of the whole facility down at Couva, as we would have mentioned, as an ideal spot for the hub of sport. But as we've all talked about, one of the things that I think that is definitely missing is that incentives as well for teams to come. Look, there's genuine interest. I mean, I could tell you of a bevy of phone calls I had when I sat in a chair from various sports wanting to come to the island. But what incentives do they have? Is it easier for them to go to Jamaica? Yes, the facilities may not be as good, but they may be getting cheaper accommodation. They may be getting different types of supports. So we need to, again, it comes back again to the integration and the working of all the different agencies to put together that package to our various interested groups to come to the island. There's definitely interest there. I do agree that we could do a little bit more as it relates to marketing, but we also have to be able to sell a very good package to obviously to compete in the market.
Thanks. Thank you, Brent. I want to just throw out something for discussion here. Are we prepared as a people? Do you believe the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago understand the importance and can act as a host for tourists? Is our environment, our people prepared for entertaining tourists, or being a servant or the service industry? Are we ready? Anyone?
Yes, I would say yes. I would say that I don't think there's any group of persons in the region who are more hospitable than a Trini. That's without question. And so I think that the sort of natural emotional things that someone would want, it's already embedded in the people, because that's who Trinis are. So I think from that standpoint, we've got a huge advantage over the rest of the region. You don't have to teach a Trinidadian to be nice. They're just nice.
What about our security environment?
I think the security is also a question of perception. I think that when you take Couva, which is a cluster of a whole set of facilities, I think the security there has the potential to be probably some of the best in the world if we're selling that within that community. And I also believe that people also have a lot to do with security. But I don't see security as a major problem as most people see it, because I think in most cases it's perception. And I think those persons who are coming here for sports are going to be within a confined space for the most part, and they're going to be protected.
Yeah, Bridget, do you have any contribution to make about the people? Oh, are we ready? You have to put your mute. Can you unmute your mic? Yes, Bridget.
Yeah, Mushtaq. Not really. I was just looking at the economic development of the entire thing, and when you get to that, I'll speak to it. But I'm good with what they have said so far.
Yeah, well, we are on that right now, and that's what I'm coming to next. That we all agree that we have the facility. Trinidad is the best place to be. We are a hospitable society. There are economic benefits, But coming to the question of, do we have the necessary data to measure the impact? Are we measuring our product value?
Yeah, let me come in here, Mushtaq. I think that's a wonderful question because of the fact that I've played West Indies cricket, and the West Indies cricket dominated world cricket for over 6 years, from the late 70s to 80s and then the early 90s. And I don't think that we've done any feasibility study on the impact, the economic impact that West Indies cricket had on West Indian people and the economies of the West Indies islands. And we know for sure about 90% of the islands depend on tourism. And I think that is where we fall short. And if we understand and look back and understand the economic impact and what West Indies cricket has done consistently over a 16 or 17-year period, then we will be more motivated to constantly look at sport tourism. But we have lost the history of the past, and that's why we're lost in the present when it comes to sports tourism. You talked just now about service. I think we have to change our psyche when it comes to service, because we have depended on oil and gas. We've not depended on tourism, not like Barbados. So they have a different psyche. So there's some work that needs to be done where that is concerned. But I don't think that we have done the research, the analytical research. The data is not there, and we are lost when it comes to understanding the great positive impact on sport as it relates to the economic impact on different islands of the Caribbean.
Brent, comments?
Yeah, it's interesting, this discussion. I don't know how many of the panelists and you guys would have seen the sports tourism policy document of 2018. I believe it's January 2018.
Yeah, I saw it, Brent. It's a draft document still.
Draft document. Yeah, it's a draft document. And it speaks a lot to what we've been conversing about here tonight. And again, I want to lament on the fact that our biggest challenge has always been in implementation. We seem to do very well with drafting up some nice documents, but when it comes to actually implementing, sustaining, and carrying on and developing a policy, we seem to struggle in that department. And I think a lot of that has to do with trying to fit square pegs into wrong holes. I don't think we have enough of the right persons in the right positions, all due respect, to drive some of these initiatives. And I think that is one of the challenges that we have. And if we could, all that we have spoken about tonight, and get the agencies and the right personnel to take these policy documents, to take these sorts of situations now and move it a step further into implementation and into now making it an actuality, I think we'll be there. And I think that is where we're really stuck, because we've spoken so much tonight about how beautiful our island is and how much we do have, which is correct. But we have to take it a step further, and I think that is where our challenge lies.
Yeah, certainly, Brent. What we're trying to do at UTT is to capture this discussion and prepare a working document coming out of this discussion so that we can help in bringing to reality what we are, or as we say, try to implement what we are so good in putting as policy. What I want to bring in here, I want the discussion here. Sorry, Bridget, you wanted to contribute in the economic side of it, you said.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak about the global trends that's happening relative to our tourism industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And some of the research that I've done, it said to me that the segment in TNT has mirrored global trends, with the number of sports tourists nearly tripling from about 1,600 visitors in 2010 to sports tourism contribution to the broader economic development. And this depends on the TNT's ability to attract non-competitive events such as the conferences, the meetings, training programs, and so on. And we had 6,315 persons coming to our shores in 2015. And that is according to the Immigration Department of TNT. Meanwhile, the Sport and Youth Affairs at the time, their figures showed that if sport tourism continued to rise by 4,500 every 5 years, TNT can expect over 10,500 sport tourism arrivals by 2020. Now, we have to bear in mind that we just came through the COVID period. So that number may not be realistic at this point in time. But had we continued with the trend, we were going to realize approximately that amount.
Can I just
Yes.
add to
Sure.
what Bridget was saying? I actually think that COVID-19 has presented us with an opportunity because of how well we've dealt with it as a country and how well the government has dealt with it as an administration. When you look at what's happening globally, Europe has already banned travel from the US as of right now. There will be no European teams coming to train in Florida as they often do, certainly in terms of football teams. They won't be coming to the States for preseason. I don't expect many of them to be going further east to the Middle East, Dubai, etc., as a usual destination, just because of their own influx of tourists from the Far East and the effect that COVID-19 had on them. You look, and certainly regionally, we've dealt with the virus better than Jamaica, who would be the other regional competitor in the absence of Florida. Just looking at the numbers up to June 25th, we had 130 confirmed COVID cases compared to Jamaica's 702, I think they were. That's a big difference, even taken into the per capita differences between ourselves and Jamaica. And I think that there's an opportunity that has presented itself, given how well we've dealt with it. Given if we position ourselves as being leaders in contact tracing and sterilizing, whatever it may be, to reassure travelers from Europe or elsewhere that they'll be safe here. I think that there's an opportunity there for us. I do, though, think that security is a concern. And I agree with Cliff in that it's a perception. And I'll speaking from first-hand experience here. Whenever I travel to Trinidad and Tobago for business with ESPN, from the day I book my tickets, I am given a warning from ESPN's global security about the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. And every day between my booking that ticket and my day of travel, I am given daily updates on every single crime statistic that Trinidad has to offer. And as a Trinidadian, it's not easy reading, and it's a concern to people who aren't from Trinidad. But then they come to me and ask about, well, is it really this bad? And I explain to them, listen, we'll be all right. No, it's larger perception. But had I not been embedded in that company, it becomes a hard sell for ESPN to do business. So it is a concern, and I think it becomes a huge negative concern if it's not dealt with. And I know that's a longer term fix, but it's one that I think similarly we haven't done a great job of addressing to at the very least huge international corporations.
Yes.
I just want to support what Shaka said about the way we manage the COVID affair, and I think there's value in that we should not throw away. We need to leverage that value because we got a recognition from Oxford for being one of the best in the world. That has value. It will probably in 2 years people would forget it, but I think now that we have it, we need to really use it and basically, as we say, leverage it for everything it has. I think there's a lot we can get from it. On the issue of crime, I think that one of the areas where we have an opportunity is looking at CUVA and positioning CUVA as a hemispheric center for sports training. We don't sell Trinidad. Now, for some of the reasons that Shaka, you mentioned about the perception of crime, that might be one way of getting around that perception, is let us take the country and sell regions, sell what is strong in that particular region of the country. That way we get around that perception of crime because you're selling that region as a destination. And that might be something that we want to think about. If we're saying that we've got all of this stuff in CUVA, it's a cluster, it's almost self-contained as a sporting destination, let's sell it for what it is. And that might help to fix that problem.
Thank you guys, thank you gentlemen. I just want to alert Rihanna, who is standing by, to bring in some of the questions that have been posed on the YouTube. So soon enough, we will, after this question, Rihanna, we will come in. So Rima Cox, she will come in and bring some of the questions from the general public. But as we look at, Brent, you were talking about the strategic alliances between you talk about sport and tourism, and I brought in the NGOs. How do we get this alliance to work? What should we be doing to package the events? Bridget talked about not only sport events, but things like conferences, general meetings. I mean, you have a World Congress on any one of these sports is 200, 300 people, 500 room nights in a hotel per night. You know, how do we get the NGOs, the sport ministry, and the tourism to work together?
I think one of the things that amazed me back in 2015 is the amount of requests that the Ministry of Sport would get from NGOs as it relates to various annual events and events on the whole that NGOs are asked to host by their various governing bodies or world bodies. The question really is now trying to of course, understand the different values that these various events that come. I know there's been, as I said, a tremendous amount of requests coming in to host events here in this country. As a Ministry of Sport perspective, a lot of what they try to do centers around, of course, the availability of facilities and making sure that these facilities are available for the NGOs for the various events that they ask for. But of course, there is also quite a lot of requests for financing. And I think that is a question as well that needs to be answered. We talk about, yes, the various agencies, the various government agencies, but we also have to find a way to, of course, bring in corporate Trinidad and Tobago, or corporate world as it matter, as it relates to these various events. And how can we now put on a platform for the various governing bodies a way that they can now get into corporate TNT, because not all the time the government could fund all these various requests that they would get from the different sporting organizations. So you have to find a way, Mustaq, to really know, again, we're talking about synergies and coming together. For example, I know Tony talked about the CPL, But the CPL is not just Ministry of Sport and Ministry of Tourism. It's about 4 or 5 various ministries that come together to make sure, not just from a financial perspective, but also from to making sure from when the teams land in the airport that they don't go through immigration, or if they do go through immigration, they swiftly go through, come out on the next side, transport is outside there, they get to the hotels, they don't have to check in. All of these different things are part and parcel of sport tourism. And for CPL, if you look at that model alone and you pull that out alone as an entity, we are doing exactly what it needs to be done for all the various sports. The question is, how do we take that CPL model and now implement it to volleyball, to beach soccer, to netball, and all these different things? And that is where you now start talking about sports tourism, because the CPL model and what is done in CPL is excellent. It's now just transforming that into all the various different sporting requests that we have, and making sure that we continue to capitalize on of course, the various teams and events that have come to the island.
Fully endorsed, fully agreed, Brent. I think that is where we have the shortfall, you know, recognizing the events that are lucrative or that has the potential, because as Shaka said, the impact of a visitor will create a return on your investment. Not only himself, his family, his friends, when they can speak good about the experience that they had in Trinidad, then where are you going for vacation next? Trinidad and Tobago. This is what we want to have. So let me bring in Ms. Cox now. Ms. Cox, do you have some questions for us for the panel?
Hello, good evening to all. Yes, I have a few questions from the YouTube chat. The first question is addressed to Bridget Adams from Rhonda Jones, and she asks, how can sports tourism be used to bring community unity?
Bridget?
Yes, are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Sport tourism can assist in various communities by providing businesses. You can bring them together through learning, servicing people, other aspects such as their hotels, whatever they may have in the vicinity of the COVA facility in particular, which I highlighted as a center or as a hub. You can find a lot of things to do there where the community can benefit from sport tourism.
Bridget, Ms. Cox.
Okay, thank you. The next question is directed to Cliff Hamilton from Leicester, Osuna, and he asks, do we have specific training in hospitality and proper protocols for young sport administrators offered?
I can speak to the hospitality end of it. We have a hospitality program here in the country that has been operating for the last 30 years. So persons do get what I would consider first-class training, because most of the cruise lines recruit heavily from the students and the student body from the Hospitality Institute. Royal Caribbean, Carnival, they all recruit Disney, they all recruit hospitality students from Trinidad and Tobago. So from that standpoint, we have trained over the last, I'd say 15 to 20 years, a very large cadre of hospitality persons who are well trained. I can't speak to the area of sport, other than I know that the UTT has a sport program. I don't know the extent to which they go into the management aspect of it, but I think UTT is the only tertiary institution that has such a program. And Mustafa, maybe you want to speak to that.
Sure, we do have a program, and we have 2 of the world-class coaches right here in their midst. So we definitely have the program. And yes, it's the only program that we have in the country, or the National University. So we have the sports program that we can train people in sports management and get them prepared, event management and stuff like that. So yes, Rihanna.
I just wanted to make another plug for my university. We have a hospitality and training program at USC, right? And we have produced a lot of students who have gone on to hold a lot of senior positions in the country and outside of the country.
So there's no coincidence. That's why both of us are here, UGT and USC. So Ms. Cox, can we take the next question? Thanks, Cliff.
Okay.
Yes, this question is directed both to Shaka Hislop and Brent Sancho, and it comes from Kenneth Samuel, and he asks, can the home of football provide sufficient rooms for the surrounding sporting facilities?
Shaka, you want to go first, or you want me to take this?
No, I don't want to go at all. I freely admit, I have no experience at the home of football. I've not visited it, so I can't speak to it as a facility at all. Brent is far better positioned than me.
Yeah, I have had the opportunity to view the home of football. In terms of what it has, it is a very good start. It has the capabilities now of probably starting, and if we were to use in terms of 1, 2, and 3, I would say it's a 1.5, 2 in terms of it. It could get up to 3 with, of course, a little bit more investment in it. I think the question is, and like anything else in this country, it comes down to maintenance, and it comes down to the reality of whether or not the Football Association is best suited to run a hotel, because essentially that's what it is. It's a hotel. And maybe it needs to be a situation where the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association leases it to somebody that runs hotels. So then the business and all that side of it becomes a bit more reality. But I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, the facilities is right on the doorsteps of the cycling velodromes, walking distance, and it's in walking distance to the football field and, of course, to the aquatic center. And you couldn't ask anything else. And of course, there's a beach soccer and possible volleyball. I think Mustak, you could bear me out here, beach volleyball facility possible as well. So there's so many different sporting disciplines that it touches. So I do think that the home of football has great potential as it is and where it's situated and what it is right now. And of course, with a little bit more work, it can become that excellent facility that I think that could service all the various facilities there.
I have to agree with you, Brent. I think that facility, I visited it. Went through the rooms because we were contemplating on hosting our Olympic qualification tournament there when COVID came. Well, that was shelved. But yes, the facility is fantastic, and the beach soccer facility, it's great. It has all the ingredients for an international event for beach volleyball. So we can have an ESPN Shaka down in Trinidad promoting a beach volleyball and beach soccer event. I know. So yes, we have. I want to just quickly before the next question and talk about. Maracas Beach is another iconic investment that can be made to have sporting activities there on the beach. Proper hotel needed to be built, but it's a place that waiting to be explored. Any comments quickly before we take the next question?
I'll go. I could contribute to this one, and it's something that we considered when I was at ESPN. I think the challenge with Maracas Beach is accessibility. Coming over the North Coast Road is difficult, and always whenever a company like ESPN are involved, people are interested in having those events go live. Now, first of all, an event going live, it takes an immense cost because of satellite costs and broadcast feeds. It's personally, I don't think it's worth it if you're a growing event. Secondly, and in talking about Maracas Beach, if you want to have an event go live, you have to have a huge truck come over that hill with the equipment that I'm not fully comfortable with. I'm not 100% confident about. And then if you are talking, a huge fan base following on and coming to support, you just had to look at what happens on a Sunday when the weather's good, and how challenging that could be. And that is off-putting for, you know, if you want to have not just athletes, but you know, top administrators and executives from the sponsoring companies, etc. You can't ask somebody, you know, you can't ask the head of some international conglomerate to sit in traffic for 2 hours in getting to an event that he sponsored. It's always a challenge.
It's good to hear that side of the story too. But you know, we talk a lot about things that are located in Trinidad, and all the tourism things are driven from Tobago. Brent, Shaka, Cliff, Tobago. Pigeon Point may not be as challenging as Maracas Beach, Shaka.
I like Pigeon Point Beach a lot, and it depends on obviously what the event is. Last time I was in Tobago and kind of looking at Pigeon Point with that hat on, we were considering a beach football event. I didn't think the beach was deep enough, and it also had a little bit of a slope on it. Now those issues are all addressable, but again, that also comes with a cost. Pigeon Point isn't as problematic as Maracas in that it's a shorter drive in from the main road, so it's not as troublesome, certainly in terms of getting the equipment in. And just to address somehow, when I was speaking about in Maracas and some of those challenges, for instance, you can sidestep a CEO sitting in traffic for 2 hours. One of the things that we considered was renting a yacht and just sailing it to Maracas and have them sit on there, and that kind of be our hospitality suite. So there are ways to work around some of those challenges. There's still no real answer for getting a truck down there, and that's going to be difficult, even if you decide to bring the truck in a day or two before. That's a problem. But Tobago certainly, I think is far more workable, especially if you're talking about Pigeon Point.
So we're talking about a tourist coming to Trinidad because all the facilities are in Trinidad more so, and then using the Tobago destination for the leisure side of it. That means our inter-island connection must also play an important part in the whole network. Yeah? No comments?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so Ms. Cox, you have another question from the audience?
Yes, I do. And this question is directed to Anthony Gray from MSAVE. And the question is there any strategic gain from having more regional events that will leverage other Caribbean destinations similar to the CPL model?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Cox. I think that there are, obviously I spoke about what happened in the past with the West Indies team, and we didn't do our research to find out the financial gains, but we can do it in different sports. I mean, the point that was made earlier that the CPL is a fantastic model for other sporting disciplines to look at. The way that it's packaged, very important. The way it's done, the coordinated effort, the efficiency. I mean, this is an event that is not easy to run because of the fact that you have different islands taking part in this event. So you have things like transport, you have things like airfares and that sort of thing. So it's a hard event, very intricate to manage. So I think it can be done in other sports, but there must be a learning process that goes on. And, these models are very, very good. Not just in the Caribbean, we have to learn from what happens in the NBA, for example. If we can have people with that educational background come in to teach our people how to manage events like this, big events, I can see it happening in any sport.
Thanks, Tony. Rihanna, we could take one more question. Thank you so much.
No problem. This is a question addressed to Shaka Hislop, and it's from Kenny Atai. And he asks, we have produced great sporting talent over the years in several areas that put us on the world map. What do we need to do to encourage more international scouts wanting to come to Trinidad and Tobago?
Scouting network is always a little bit of a challenge because of course for them, given the competitive nature of sports and international scouting and the global reach that's now available to them, we have to continue to produce talent at the highest level. I think there are other challenges to that, and I'll just use football as an example. So right now, given our FIFA World Ranking, it becomes challenging for any scout because beneath 70 in the FIFA World Ranking, it becomes problematic for players to get work permits. So for a scout to come to Trinidad and identify a player, he has the additional headache of trying to get them work permits, which I'm not sure they can do readily right now. So we're in a little bit of a catch-22 in that. We certainly need, and having players play at the highest levels of international football helps in terms of our national team and how good they are, how competitive they are, and their FIFA World Ranking. But then, if our FIFA World Ranking drops to a point, we no longer have or no longer can get those players adequately placed. And long gone are the days, thanks to child labor laws, which I totally agree. But Dwight Yorke moving to Aston Villa at age 16 is no longer a possibility for us. There are opportunities. Major League Soccer that does a Caribbean combine, it's held in one Caribbean country. I'm not 100% certain of the process, what's needed from each individual association, but there is the chance for the best players, most promising players to attend and therefore and grab attention, and coaches and scouts alike come to those. But again, the competition is fierce, given that it's everybody from all Caribbean countries. So there are opportunities there, but you do have to seek them out, and the nature of sport has become far more competitive, and it's not as easy to find placement as maybe it once was.
Thank you very much, Shaka. So as I indicated to the audience, thank you very much for joining us. And sorry we can't take all the questions, but we hope we will certainly make a collection of all these questions and see how we can address them in one way or the other through our universities' dilemma in terms of packaging what we have discussed tonight. Tonight, gentlemen, lady, we have identified that Trinidad and Tobago is an excellent destination for sport. We have the facilities, we have a lot that is going good for us. What we lack, implementation, and I think what we are calling for is the policy to be made public, or to be made so we can implement the policy, move it from a draft stage towards an implementers to implement the policies. I think you would agree with me if I would say in summarizing here that we have a challenge in marketing. We are not doing a good job in marketing our country, our events, and so forth. We talk about a little bit about investment, but who going to invest? Every investment, there's an expectation of returns. But if you want return, you need to invest. So who is going to invest? The government or the corporate sector? We need to promote our facilities more in a wider context, in the international context, and encourage them, incentive, as Brent was saying, some way of providing incentives so that they will come to our country. Because if they come to our country, we give them a discount on a Caribbean Airlines plane, but they spend twice as much more from the discount that we give them. We will benefit. They will return and pay a full fare flight with the aunt and the uncle and the children. So that investment bring return. And these are some of the tangible ways that we need to look at sports tourism. It's not an investment that we're going to be making that's going to bring returns to the bank tomorrow. It's a long-term thing. It's a long-term way that we can benefit of the country if we are going to diversify the economy and make it a viable option. Tonight, we have been talking about sport tourism, a viable option. And we all agree it is a viable option. It's just we need to know what to do to bring the option or make it viable, if I were to say that. Any closing comments? I will invite you to give a closing comments before I reintroduce Mr. Ian Pritchard, our manager, to give his closing remarks. Cliff, start with you.
Thanks for inviting me. I certainly appreciate being here and learned a lot. I still maintain that we have all of the ingredients, and I think all of the presenters added what they thought we need to do to basically provide the glue and move forward. So I like I said, we have huge opportunities ahead of us.
Tony?
Yeah, I think that we have always been blessed as a country with not just the ingredients, but the people with the astuteness and the ability to learn and the creativity of our people. I think sports tourism is a viable option. I think it's much needed because of the economic situation that we've found ourselves in. I think that we have to go that way, and we have to work hard to trying to bring monies into the coffers of the country through sports tourism. So it's a viable option, and I would embrace it, and I hope that people embrace it also.
Shaka?
Well, thank you very much to UTT for having me, and thanks to the rest of the panelists for your candid contributions this evening. Just in closing, I would like to say that I continue to be a guy whose glass is half full, especially when talking about Trinidad and Tobago. I think there's an opportunity there for us. Maybe we haven't done a good enough job of leveraging exactly who we are and all that we can provide. But I feel this is a good platform for us to start doing that now. There are opportunities there for us, and we should make the most of. I think the one thing I'd like to take away or leave, if I may, is that I think too often we see sport as a recreational activity. And as we look at sport and the impact that it has, not just on the athlete or on the event, but to Trinidad and Tobago as a whole and to our communities, it's a whole lot more. It's big business and needs to be approached with that same critical thinking in how we leverage our God-given assets into making it a viable and sustainable business that affects all in Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm going to leave Bridget for last because I want to give her the opportunity to say the closing comments. Brent?
Yeah, I want to, of course, thank UTT and the rest of the panelists for having me tonight and obviously sharing their contributions. I want to challenge UTT to take this forum that we've had here tonight and plaster it and push it as much as we can. There was really, truly some very valuable presentations and comments being made here, and even questions from the various individuals. It really is heartwarming to see so many passionate people of Trinidad and Tobago descent wanting to see sports tourism become a major economic driver. And I think with the passion that I've seen here tonight, along with the questions and the other persons, I think we're really in the right place, and I think we're heading in the right direction. But again, I take UTT to the challenge that I would like to see you all take this far and wide, which I know you will, and push it, because we need to start screaming from the top of our lungs, because sports tourism is here, and it's a strong possibility for a beautiful Twin Island.
Thank you, Brent, and I'm going to accept that challenge. We will do as you say. Bridget?
Yeah, in 2017, under the then Minister, Darrell Smith, Trinidad and Tobago hosted the most international sporting events at the highest level in our history. 2017 also saw the most sporting governing presidents and high-level officials visit our shores, all part of the process to make Trinidad and Tobago the sporting capital of the region. I would like us to continue on that trajectory and continue to make sport a viable option for us. I think UTT is also on the right path in educating the public of what we think of certain areas in our society. And I will welcome any aspect of the sport tourism that we can take forward that I can sit on to assist with further development.
Thank you very much. And let me just thank Rima Cox for doing the part of bringing the questions there and making sure that we have the input of our audience. On my behalf, it was my pleasure to be with you guys. It's an honor to sit in the room, and I say sit in a room, but virtually that is, with the collective intellect that we have there and the sporting icons. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And let me reintroduce Mr. Ian Pritchard, who's going to give some closing comments. Ian.
Thank you very much, Mustak. And let me take this opportunity to say thanks to our panelists first. To our listening audience, our viewing audience, it has been a pleasure. At the University of Trinidad and Tobago, we are about making change. And Brent, we take up that challenge. And I know that you know how I work. You know how we work. We have worked together before, and you know that it's all about being the drivers for change. To Mr. Hamilton, thank you very much for accepting our invitation without any question. To my good friend, Brent, we go a long way back. And from the time I mentioned, Brent, I need your assistance, there was not another question and asked after that. Shaka as well. Shaka took time off of his busy schedule. He just said, give me the date and I'll fix my schedule to suit. So Shaka, we thank you so much for your knowledge sharing with us. And to our two high performance, world-renowned, talented coaches at UTT, Bridget Adams and Mr. Tony Gray. Thank you so much. I mean, with a panel like this, we can only expect, could have only expected excellent ideas coming forward. What we need to do now is to move, as Brent and Shaka and everybody alluded to, move from the discussion stage to try to see how we can implement some of these changes to really realize the true potential of Trinidad and Tobago as the #1 sport tourism destination in the Western Hemisphere. We have what it takes. I think we have the willpower as well, and we can make a difference. And not just can, but with persons like you all on board and the University of Trinidad Academy of Sport in particular, we will make a difference. Last week, we accepted the challenge to ensure that we use sport as a vehicle for national development. We have collated all the ideas that would have come forward. And tonight, again, I know that we are doing the same. And together, at the end of this entire series of webinars, we will put together some type of document that we hope to drive as the document that will assist in making the change. Not just a document that will sit in drawer 12, but a document that will be at the head of the table to implement change in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, panelists, and do have a wonderful evening. Make sure and join us next week, where we discuss the very important topic, university sport and its importance. May God bless us all and have a wonderful evening. Reach home safely and reach to your bed safely as well. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Love you. Good evening. Thanks.
You.
Just talk to them. You just end, yeah, everybody love one.
Come on.